I want to do is the first couple problems of your Chapter 18 homework part 1 and show you how I want those filled out on um, the template that you have on page 9 in your packet. So this is on page 7 in your packet. And since we only got to the proportion type problems in class today, I want you to do the proportion problems only. There are mean problems and there are proportion problems. And so I want the proportion problems only. All right. So what we first need to do is read a problem and determine if it is a mean or if it is a proportion. So when we read number 1, it says the scores of individual students on the American College Testing Program, so ACT, um, college entrance examination have a normal distribution with a mean of 18.6 and a standard deviation of 6. At Northside High School, 36 seniors take the test. So see, this would be giving us the size of our sample. Then it says, what is the probability that a randomly selected sample of 36 seniors from Northside High would result in a sample mean of 19.2 or higher? So because it is talking about the mean of a group of 36 seniors and the value of the means, then this is a mean problem as opposed to a proportion. Now, we're not doing that today, so when you go to page 9, then I first want you to notate that number 1 is a mean problem, and so we're going to go ahead and then just stop there and not fill out any more of number 1. So let's do number 2 and see what kind of problem that is. Number 2 says, census data for a certain county shows that 19% of the adult residents are Hispanic. Now, I want you to notice that if we're talking census, we are talking the whole population was measured. So all of the county was measured. Therefore, when I see this 19% of the adults are Hispanic in that county, that will be a population value for the county of the proportion that are Hispanic. Now, why did I know that was a proportion? Well, because it is a percentage of the adult residents. And percentages are, of course, proportions. And later, we're going to be wondering if the real proportion of the Hispanics, which is 19%, is still supported by this sample that they get. So this is a problem we need to do all the way through. So let's go over here and do number 2 on page 9. It is a proportion problem. All right, first we probably need to note somewhere that the sample size, since this is a sampling distribution, N is your sample size. Well, let's go back here and read. So 19% of all adult residents are Hispanic. So while I'm thinking about it, this means the true P, the population P of Hispanics is 0.19. Okay, so I do know that. Suppose that 72 people are called for jury duty. This means this is a group of a sample of size 72. So they're going to be selecting the jury of 72 people. And when they did that, 9 of them are Hispanic. So let's go then and answer what we know over here. What is the sample size? 72. The mean of the sample distribution should be what the true P is. So the mean we should get should be 19% Hispanic. So on average, we should have proportions of 19% Hispanics in our samples of jury. The standard deviation follows, of course, this formula, P times 1 minus P over N. And so that is going to be the square root of 0.19. And the other part of that is 0.18 over our sample size of 72. This number, when you calculate it, is 0.0462. I want you to go to 4 decimal places. All right, now it doesn't tell you to put this right here, but let's go ahead and put what the value of P hat is. P hat means what's the sample that was obtained? Well, if I take a look here, it says, suppose that of the 72 people that were called for jury, 9 of them are Hispanic. That is the sample that was obtained. Therefore, over here, this sample, 9 over 72, which is 0.125. So essentially, what we're saying is this. There should be 19% of the sample be Hispanics. But we got a sample, and it only had 12.5% Hispanics. So are they using a method, when they call their jury members, are they using a method that is fair, or is it biased and creating a jury that is not representative of the population? That's what's happening. So here, let's start our little thing here. First, P hat is the proportion of Hispanics on the jury in that county. And our picture is going to look something like this. It should average out, the average of the sampling distribution should be 0.19. But we got a sample right here of 0.125. All right? What would make us call into question, because that's the question that it's asking. Let's look at the words here. Does this result call into question the fairness of the jury selection system? What would make you claim, if you were a lawyer for a Hispanic defendant, what would make you say, hey, this should be a mistrial because the juries that they select are not being representative of the population? And that would be pretty much if you got something that was at 0.125 or less. I mean, we want to see what this probability is here, because if that is a low amount, that's going to make us call into question if this 0.19 is actually the true proportion that gets sampled for a jury of Hispanics, the proportion of Hispanics that get sampled for the jury. All right, so our Z is X minus the mean over the standard deviation. So that is the sample proportion minus the population proportion over the mean, or I'm sorry, over this standard deviation up here that we computed already, 0.0462. That Z-score is negative 1.406. So right now in your mind, you should have an understanding as to whether or not this sample of 0.125 is unusual. And is it? And that answer is, it is not unusual. Why? Because it's not even 2 standard deviations below. Okay, it would have to be, it's only 1.4 standard deviations down. So it is not outside of 2 standard deviations down. It was within. So that could have happened because of sampling variability. So that was not unusual. Let's go ahead and find what this area of the red area is. So if you had gone from low Z of negative 99 up to the placement of that sample is located at negative 1.406 standard deviations down, then you get an area. So that red area is 7.99%. We're going to talk later that if something is less than 5%, then it is considered unusual. But so since this is not, then we don't consider it usual. Furthermore, so let's write our conclusion. Since the sample is not an outlier, more than 2 standard deviations below the mean, the sample is not unusual. It does not call into question the fairness of the jury selection process. Because the number I got could have happened just because of sampling variability. It's not freaky low. So I don't have evidence that they are choosing jurors unfairly. So it does not call into question the fairness of the jury selection process. All right, so I want you to finish this assignment, and you only need to do the proportion problems, not the ones that are for the means.